Hola clase. So today we're going to talk about reflexive verbs. And a verb is reflexive when the subject of the sentence and the object of the sentence are the same. So a good way to think about this is is the subject talking about him or herself? Or is the action happening to him or herself? All right. So if you look at these verbs, we have poner, llamar, bañar, vestir, relajar, preparar, acostar, ir y levantar. Some of these verbs are verbs that you've seen before. Some of them are not. All of them, though, are in their IR, ER, or AR form. All right, so these are regular verbs, and if you'll notice, you have verbs like poner, which is a irregular go verb. All right, you have verbs like llamar and preparar that are regular AR verbs. You have verbs like vestir, which is a stem-changing verb. And you have verbs like ir, which is, again, an irregular verb. Acostar, which is a stem-changing verb. So with reflexive verbs, what you'll notice is that we're going to have a mixture of regular verbs with stem-changing verbs. This unit on reflexive verbs takes these verbs and kind of mushes them into a pile of verbs, and they are used reflexively. All right, so what makes a verb reflexive? Well, if you look at the screen, it just changed. Now we have these same verbs, but they have added a SE at the end of the verb. Now we have, instead of poner, we have ponerse. We have llamarse, bañarse, vestirse, and so on. All right, so when you're looking at these verbs, they are still in their regular infinitive form. They have not been changed or conjugated. And when you're looking verbs up in a dictionary, you would probably never find them in the reflexive form with the SE at the end. You generally only see them with their IR, AR, ER form. So this SE that has been added to the end is what we call a reflexive pronoun. Reflexive pronoun. And it's going to be used in the sentence to make the verb reflexive. It'll get rearranged, but it will still be used in the sentence. And I'm going to show you how to do that here in just a minute. So we have a few more reflexive verbs. We have despertar, cepillarse, cepillarse, secarse, peinarse, afeitarse, y maquillarse. All right, despertarse means to wake oneself up. Cepillarse, to brush oneself. Secarse, to dry oneself. Peinarse, to brush oneself. Afeitarse, to shave oneself. And maquillarse, to make up oneself. All right, so before we move on, again, you can refer to your list of reflexive verbs for the week for their meanings and how they're used, but I wanted to specifically talk about a few of these verbs here. So we have cepillarse and peinarse, and if you look at their meanings, for both of them I have to brush oneself, and they do mean to brush oneself. So how do you know when to use one and not the other? Well, specifically, let's talk about cepillarse. Cepillarse can be used to state that you're going to brush your hair or that you're going to brush your teeth. Okay, it can be used interchangeably between the two to say that you're going to brush your hair or brush your teeth. So you would hear it like this. You would hear it, yo me cepillo los dientes. O yo me cepillo el pelo. I brush my hair or I brush my teeth. Peinarse, on the other hand, is only going to really be used to state that you're brushing or combing your hair, right? You would never use it to state that you're going to brush your teeth. So you'll hear it like this. Yo me peino el pelo. Yo me peino el pelo. All right, so hopefully you guys can remember that peinarse is only going to be used to comb your hair, brush your hair, and that cepillarse is going to be used for either or, and you'll hear it mainly used to brush your teeth. You won't use peinarse there. All right, and then maquillarse, there's a noun in Español. It's maquillaje. The noun means makeup. And the verb maquillarse is the act of putting on the makeup. So girls, this will be one that you'll probably want to use quite a bit. Yo me maquillo todos los días. todos los días. Or yo no me maquillo, if you're like me. Yo no me maquillo todos los días. I don't put makeup on every day. All right. All right, so this is where you're going to want to pause the video and write down these reflexive pronouns. All right, so reflexive pronouns, me, te, se, nos, os, se. All right, so these reflexive pronouns correlate almost as if they were subject pronouns. So in this class and in Spanish 1, you learned about subject pronouns. Subject pronouns were pronouns or words that replace the subject of the sentence or the proper noun in the sentence. So instead of saying Maggie does a certain thing, you would say she does a certain thing. So we've used subject pronouns quite a bit, and you're going to continue to use them. So this is a second set of pronouns that you'll have learned in this class. You have me, I do this to myself. Te, you do something to yourself. Se, he does something to him or herself. And then you can use it with the formal you. Nos, ourselves. Os, yourselves. And se, themselves or yourselves. All right, so it kind of correlates with those subject pronouns, except they're used a little differently, and I'm going to show you how they're used. So make sure that you've written them down and that you have their meanings. All right, so conjugating these verbs. Let's look at this verb, bañarse. All right, bañarse, meaning to bathe oneself. All right, so in order to conjugate it, like I stated a minute ago, you have to have your subject pronouns. Again, guys, we're not going to quit using subject pronouns. They're here. We're going to continue to use subject pronouns, so you might want to be able to note the difference between the subject pronouns and your reflexive pronouns. So you have yo, I, tú, él, ella, usted, nosotros, vosotros, ellos, ellas, y ustedes. All right, so to conjugate these reflexive verbs, you're going to conjugate the verb as if you were to conjugate it regularly. Bañar is an AR verb, so you would conjugate it like a regular AR verb. Baño, bañas, baña, bañamos, bañáis, bañan. All right, so it's conjugated regular. Now, when we conjugated this, we dropped the AR and we dropped the SE. All right, so we dropped both the AR and the SE and we conjugate it regularly. Now, like I stated earlier, in order to make the verb reflexive, you have to have the reflexive pronoun. So that SE is going to get rearranged and you're going to put it in front of the verb. And you're going to make sure that you're using the reflexive pronoun that correlates with the subject. So you'll take those reflexive pronouns and you'll add them in front of the verb. So now you have yo me baño, tú te bañas, ella se baña, nosotros nos bañamos, vosotros os bañáis, y ellas se bañan. When you have the reflexive pronoun in front of the verb like this and you're creating a sentence, you're stating that you do it to yourself. Yo me baño, I bathe myself. Hopefully that is a true statement. Tú te bañas, you bathe yourself. If you're to do it without the reflexive pronoun here, yo baño, you would need to have a direct object here that is not yourself. So you could say that you bathe your dog. Yo baño mi perro. Yo baño mi perro. But when you add the reflexive pronoun, you're stating that you're doing it to yourself. Yo me baño, I bathe, and then myself. It doesn't follow the same syntax that we do in English, but it's essentially saying the same thing. I bathe myself. All right. So what you need to know is that you're going to have to follow this word order or this formula. The subject, the reflexive pronoun, the verb, and the rest of the sentence. Here's this example here. The man, clearly, the man does not bathe himself. The man is the subject of our sentence. Bathe himself is our reflexive verb and our reflexive pronoun. Again, the syntax is a little different from English to Spanish. And then we have our negative word here to state that he's not doing something to himself. But you notice that even in English, we do have that reflexive pronoun, himself. The man does not bathe himself. All right, so how would that look in Spanish then? You'd want to follow the same syntax from the formula that I'm showing you. El señor no se baña. Notice that the no has been put in front of the verb and its reflexive pronoun. So if you're going to make a statement negative, you're going to add that negative in front of the reflexive pronoun and the verb. El señor no se baña. El señor no se baña. All right, let's cover one more verb. So believe it or not, you guys have been using reflexive verbs since the beginning of Spanish 1. Llamarse, to call oneself. In Spanish 1, you would have learned a common phrase that your teacher would have said, Hola, ¿cómo te llamas? Do y'all remember what that question means? ¿Cómo te llamas? You're right. It means what is your name, or what are you called? So you've been using this verb since the beginning of Spanish 1. You just weren't taught at that time that it was reflexive, but it was. All right, llamar by itself means to call. When you add the se to this verb, it means to call oneself. And in Spanish, that question would literally translate into, what do you call yourself? So in order to conjugate this verb, you would need your subject pronouns. Again, your yo, tú, él, ella, usted, nosotros, vosotros, ellos, ustedes. And then you would drop the AR and SE and conjugate the verb as you would normally conjugate any other verb. Again, note that if it is a stem changing verb, you would give it its stem change in all the forms except the nosotros or the vosotros form. But llamar is a regular AR verb. So you have yo llamo, tú llamas, ella llama, nosotros llamamos, vosotros llamáis, ellos llaman. When it's used in this format, yo llamo, you can add a direct object there. Yo llamo a mi amigo. I call my friend. Or tú llamas a tu perro. You call your dog. In order to make it reflexive, again, you have to add that reflexive pronoun. Yo me llamo. Now you're saying I call myself. Now, by itself, that's kind of weird to say I call myself. Nobody actually picks up the phone and calls themselves. So we use this in Spanish to state what our names are. Yo me llamo Melissa. Yo me llamo Melissa. ¿Cómo te llamas? ¿Cómo te llamas? So I just got done asking, what do you call yourself? Hopefully you answered that question saying, yo me llamo, and you stated your name. Here's another one. ¿Cómo se llama tu mamá? ¿Cómo se llama tu mamá? Hopefully you answered stating, mi mamá, or mi madre, se llama, and then you use her name. All right. So again, this isn't a foreign concept. You guys have used this in Spanish 1, hopefully. You're just now understanding that it is a reflexive verb and how that particular verb worked. All right? All right, so let's just practice a little bit more. I want you to look at this question. ¿A qué hora te despiertas cada día? ¿A qué hora te despiertas cada día? So before you can answer this question, there's a few things that you need to be able to note. Can you find the verb in this question? Hopefully, you were able to see that it is despertar. More accurately is despertarse. There should be a se at the end of this verb because it is used reflexively. But despertar by itself means to wake up. By itself, it means to wake up. Do you notice anything about its infinitive form and the way it has been used in this question? Hopefully, you're able to see that it is an E to IE stem changing verb. So, when I ask this question, ¿a qué hora te despiertas cada día? Can you hear that spelling change? This question is asking about time. ¿A qué hora te despiertas cada día? You would have learned in Spanish 1 that when we're talking about time, we use the verb ser, es la, or son las. All right? But this question is not asking what time is it right now. It's asking at what time. You have this preposition a added to the beginning of the question, which means at. So, ¿a qué horas? At what time do you wake up? In order to be able to answer this question, you're going to need these two phrases here that kind of correlate with the same responses that you would have used if you're saying, what time is it presently? ¿A qué horas? Or es la, or son las. A las is going to get used between 2 and 12 o'clock a.m. or p.m. And a la is going to get used between 1 o'clock and 1:59. All right, again, it correlates with that son las and es la when you're stating time in that moment. This is talking about something that's going to happen at a particular time. So you need these phrases. And guys, I would pause the video and write this down in your notes, because you will see questions that are going to ask this. What time do you wake up? And what time do you go to sleep? You'll need to respond using these phrases at a certain time. A few other helpful phrases that will help make your sentences a little bit more complex are these right here. De la mañana, de la tarde, y de la noche. All right, so hopefully you remember that these mean in the morning, in the evening, and at night. All right, de la mañana, de la tarde, y de la noche. All right, so to respond to this question, ¿a qué horas te despiertas cada día? I would use, I wake up at 6:30 in the morning. Take the time to pause this video and see if you can come up with the correct response in español. Right? Your response would be, yo me despierto a las 6:30 de la mañana. All right. So when you're looking at this response, there's a couple of things that we're building on our knowledge. We're using our prior knowledge of time, our numbers, to be able to create this response. More importantly, though, here you have this reflexive use of the verb. Yo me despierto. Despertar, because it is a stem changer, does receive that spelling change in this yo form. And then it requires that reflexive pronoun to say that I wake myself up. Okay? I am 30 years old, and my mother no longer comes to my home every day and wakes me up. I have to wake myself up. So yo me despierto a las 6:30 de la mañana. Here's another one. ¿A qué horas te acuestas en la noche? Your response should look similar to this. Me acuesto a las 10 de la noche. Me acuesto a las 10 de la noche. So when you're looking at this question, ¿a qué horas te acuestas? Your verb here is acostarse. Again, it's a new verb. And if you'll notice its infinitive form, you'll notice that it is a stem changing verb. So you need to make sure that you're paying attention to this and that you are giving it its spelling change in all of the forms except the nosotros and the vosotros forms when you're using it this week and you're practicing. All right. Last thing here for this particular video is I'm going to go through a set of questions, and you need to respond to whether this statement is reflexive or not. Can you tell? Me pongo los lentes porque no puedo ver. ¿Es reflexivo? Well, this particular sentence is reflexive. Me pongo. You have your verb pongo, which means to put or to place, and you have that reflexive pronoun in front of it, saying, I myself put on my glasses. Me pongo los lentes, glasses, porque no puedo ver. María levanta a su hermana. ¿Es reflexivo? Hopefully you're able to see that this phrase is not reflexive. There is no reflexive pronoun in front of the verb, and the object of the sentence is su hermana. So María wakes up her sister. María levanta a, note the use of the personal a, levanta a su hermana. The object of the sentence is a person, so it requires that personal a, and it is not reflexive. Pablo y Felipe se relajan después de la escuela. ¿Es reflexivo? Hopefully you're able to see that this statement is reflexive. You have your verb relajar. Relajar. It is used reflexively. It has the reflexive pronoun se in front of it. So that correlate, that se matches up with the subject of the sentence, Pablo and Felipe. That's important that it matches because you'll see later on in Spanish that there's another group of pronouns that will be used sometimes in front of the verb, and it's still not reflexive. So you have the se, and you have Pablo and Felipe, and it does correlate. So this particular statement is reflexive. Pablo y Felipe se relajan después de la escuela. They themselves relax after school. Miguel se afeita antes de salir con su novia. ¿Es reflexivo? Hopefully you guys can see that this sentence is reflexive. We have the verb afeitarse. Afeitarse. Do you guys remember what this verb means? All right. So it has been changed to fit Miguel, and the reflexive pronoun has been placed in front of the verb, making this statement reflexive. Miguel is shaving himself antes de salir con su novia, before he goes out with his girlfriend. José pone los libros sobre la mesa. ¿Es reflexivo? Hopefully you guys can see that the verb in this sentence is poner. José pone los libros sobre la mesa. But it is not reflexive. The action is being done to the books. José is doing the action. He's putting the books on the table, but he is not receiving the action, making this sentence non-reflexive. And it does not have a reflexive pronoun, which will hopefully give that away. And a few more. We have la muchacha maquilla a la actriz. La muchacha maquilla la actriz. La muchacha is the subject of the sentence. Maquillar is the verb. But hopefully you guys can see that this is not reflexive because there's not a reflexive pronoun and the actress is the one receiving the action. Last but not least, we have ¿te duele la espalda? ¿Te duele la espalda? ¿Es reflexivo? This one's a little bit more tricky, but the sentence is not reflexive. Although it does have a pronoun te, it actually is not a reflexive verb because duele in this sentence is used like the verb gustar. If you think about and go back to your gustar sentences and what we learned at the very beginning of this course, la espalda would be the subject of the sentence, doler is the verb, and te would be your indirect object pronoun, meaning the back hurts you. All right. That one was a little tricky, and hopefully you'll be able to see that with some practice. One of the things that would give that away is that if you look at the verb doler, duele, and the pronoun te, they don't match. The verb duele is conjugated to fit the subject, la espalda. Had it been reflexive, you would have dueles, te, dueles. But unfortunately, that is not the way it is used here. Duele is used like the verb gustar. So make sure you look out for those tricky pronouns when you're trying to figure out whether a verb is reflexive or not. All right, hopefully this video helps. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to message myself or your instructor. And I hope you've learned a lot about reflexive verbs.